So this is Taylor Mason, and I'm here today with Representative Danilo Burgos. This is an ongoing oral history project on the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus and Latino Caucus and its impact on members and staff. Thank you so much for taking time to do this today.
Oh, thank you.
So let's just get started by explaining a little bit about yourself and how you got to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives.
So I am first generation Dominican American, born in Washington Heights, New York, and raised here in Philadelphia. My family immigrated in 1992 to the city of Brotherly Love, where my mother purchased her first business and first home in the same district that I represent today.
Okay. So what have been your experiences being a person of color in the House? Do you think there's extra hurdles to overcome being a person of color when running for public office?
Running for public office, we're representing the community that, in my particular case, I grew up in the community I have the honor of representing. But once you make it to the House, you do have to work. Being a person of color and Latino, we do have to work twice as hard just to be recognized and to have the voice of our community recognized. Unfortunately, even in today, 2022, the way that some communities are viewed are not in a favorable way or an equal way as our Constitution implies. We still have some social, economic-based issues that affect, in particular, a community like mine, the 197th Legislative District. We still have underfunded schools, the need of jobs, good-paying jobs, and I mean, just the simple fact of properly funding schools, the inequity in school districts across the Commonwealth. And it just so happens that the ones that receive the least funding are the school districts that are primarily people of color and communities of immigrants, which it shouldn't have to be like, it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. As you also mentioned, you're the first Dominican elected to the House of Representatives. Do you think more people will start running for office that have diverse cultural backgrounds? Do you think this will open more doors up for other people?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about being Dominican, but being someone that's different of the status quo, and the diversity is what makes our state rich and welcoming for other immigrant groups. We still, this past census of 2020, we were supposed to lose 2 congressional seats, and because of the growth of the Latino community across the Commonwealth, we only lost 1 seat. And I'm sure if we would have had that extra month, we probably would have done much better in numbers throughout the state. But our president at the time shortened the time of the census.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Going into your district, you said the 197th district is the one you represent. Could you explain the issues that are important to your constituents? Do you think they are parallel to the goals of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus and or the Latino Caucus?
Oh, absolutely. Our concerns in the 197th are quality paying jobs, safe communities, and education, both elementary level, high school, and higher education. Access to higher education it's through history. We've always understood that the more educated a community is, we have less crime, you have better paying jobs, you're able to access better paying jobs, and you have a much less crime than in communities where education is a hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you have any prior relationships with your predecessors? Did they play a mentor role for you when you started running for the House, or did you work for any former members, anything along those lines?
I did work for a former member Rosita Youngblood,
Okay.
and I worked in city council in Philadelphia for the councilwoman that represents my community.
Mhm.
But my predecessor did not play a role in mentoring me.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was just one of those situations where me personally, I was tired of the corruption in our area, and I decided to do something about it in my community. And the community stepped up and gave me the opportunity, and here we are.
Okay. Yeah, because I made a history. I made a list of former predecessors in your district. So there's members like Leslie Acosta, Jose Miranda, Gary Williams. So is that the same story then? You did not really get to know them at all when you were running for the House?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So
But
go ahead.
the former member before the district was drawn into the Latino community,
Mhm.
the former House member Jewel Williams, he has played a mentoring, helping me understand the legislative process and how it works, how I go about proposing new laws or changes to the laws that will benefit our community.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for sharing that. So moving now to the caucus in service. So how have you been involved with the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus in the last 2 terms?
In the last 2 terms, I've been involved under Chairman Kinsey. We hosted a series with the Tuskegee Airmen, with the living members of the Tuskegee Airmen, both in Harrisburg and here in Chairman Kinsey's district. Basically, helping our new generation understand our past and hopefully to not forget that we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us.
Okay. I believe you were here in 2020 when the Black Caucus took over Rostrum to.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Yes, how can I forget that?
That's okay. Would you like to explain a little bit about that? And
yeah, it was a Sunday evening. We all got on most of us got on a phone call, and we were saying, we're going back to Harrisburg. This was the first week right after. The civil unrest in our, we've been talking about these issues it was my freshman year, and for most of us, and for the rest of the delegation that have been members for quite a while, these are nothing. It feels like nothing is going to be changed. What can we do different so they can take us serious? And the following morning on Monday, there was a meeting, and then it was like, well, here we go. And we brought the frustration of our communities to the floor of the House of Representatives. And I'm extremely proud that I was part of that moment in the history of our Commonwealth, where a handful of, or not a handful, it was literally all of us that were there. We took over the rostrum and we interrupted session. And we finally got some bills to move forward that otherwise, unfortunately, would never have been moved forward, or it would have taken at least another 10 years before these bills would have came into effect.
Okay.
There's more police accountability, and my goodness, I'm forgetting about the other one. Those are a couple of bills that were became into law because of our actions at the rostrum.
I interviewed Representative Kinsey a week or 2 ago. I believe he might have mentioned gun reform, or oh man, now I'm forgetting. It might have been
the one bill that I remember is the one that has to do with tracking bad police officers.
Okay.
So that police officer's record from one institution, let's say a Philadelphia police officer applies to work in Harrisburg police gets to see the history or any demerits that police officer might have had in Philadelphia. So now they get the true story, not whatever the police officer is telling them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, what are some other issues you hope the Black Caucus will tackle in future sessions?
I, I, um, Fair funding for our public schools. Um, it's imperative that we figure out how we properly fund schools, is particularly in areas that have for years have been disenfranchised. Like there was like schools like in my district in the 197, um, where resources are scarce and hard to come by for some of our schools.
Okay.
I mean, something, and it seems simple, but for whatever reason, it's not. Like athletics, if we could bring back sports to full funding in across all of our schools from elementary through high school, that goes a long way in building a child's character and building a child's uh, um, moral values. They learn how to do teamwork, how to be self-sufficient, and it just does wonders for the overall self-esteem of the child.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You are one of now the original members of the newly established Latino caucus. So how did this caucus get started and what are the goals in the future for this group of individuals?
Well, one of our goals is to highlight the contributions of Hispanics throughout the Commonwealth, not just in a section of not having your traditional Philadelphia, Lancaster, Reading, Allentown. In today's atmosphere, you have Latinos, considerable Latino communities in Salisbury, Pennsylvania, York Springs, York City, Bethlehem, and a number of different, the Poconos, just literally all over Pennsylvania. We're not just in one area anymore, like it was traditionally, and we're contributing almost to all 66 counties of the Commonwealth to the growth of our entire state. It's one that in our case we've taken on the challenge of trying to provide driver's license for undocumented people. This is something that's already been adapted in all of our neighboring states. And it's frustrating when you're dealing with your counterparts that do not. They say everything that's wrong with society, but do absolutely very little, close to nothing, when it comes to putting up laws that will benefit everyone, not just a special interest or one group.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my final question for you then is, how have these caucuses impacted your House service thus far?
Oh, it's made it easier. Both caucuses, particularly the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, who has really taken me in and mentored me, and we've created some synergy across the state, because again, it's not just representatives from one part of the state; it's representatives from Western Pennsylvania, Central Pennsylvania, Southeastern Pennsylvania, and just working together and sharing perspectives of each part of our state and our communities has helped me understand what goes on, or kind of have some type of understanding of what goes on in Harrisburg amongst our colleagues, both Republicans and Democrats, and it's even helped me understand the old saying of blue dogs. Those are the Democrats that tend to almost vote with Republicans all the time. And it's really representing their communities. It's not whether they're right or wrong. I believe we're all right. We just have to figure out how we coexist. We have to have empathy for one another, and that's what the caucuses have helped me develop, is more empathy for understanding of other communities, not just mine.
Okay. Well, those were my questions for you. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss, or anything that you would like to put in this interview as part of the record?
We are it's unfortunate that we had to take over the rostrum to deal with issues that we thought were addressed in the civil rights era, and here we are again 40 years later or something, and we're still arguing about the same issues, still fighting for the same the sense of equality as community. I hope as we continue to build for a better Pennsylvania, that we have more empathy for one another and for our communities, and agree on making Pennsylvania first in everything.
Okay. Well, I think that was a great place to end. That was a great quote. But thank you so much for participating in this today.